So here we are live. So namaste, namaskara, wanakam, sat sri akal, assalamu alaikum, shalom, dorud, and welcome to the REXperience Cool Convos that we have with inspiring authors every Sunday at 7:30 hours. Anand Mahadevan, it's a pleasure to have you with us and join all the inspiring authors who've been on this platform. And we're looking forward to learning from your journey and from all the insights from your book today. So welcome once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jerry, for having me on the show. And I look forward to some wonderful interaction with my audience, with my readers this evening. So let's go for it.
Right. You're welcome. So I'm your host for the evening. My name is Jerry Almeida, and a warm welcome to all the people who joined us on Facebook Live. And like I was telling you earlier before we started, Anand, I basically tell stories, true stories of real heroes, and I've seen that you do that in your films. And every week we try to invite authors from three genres that we focus on. One is the self-help genre as a leadership coach and a corporate trainer. That's what I specialize in. And I also write books on self-help. The second is autobiographies, biographies of leaders, real heroes. Again, a genre that I kind of work on, and I see that you do that in through the medium of films. And the third genre is books which tackle and kind of try to address social, political, economic concerns and issues and concerns that are plaguing our country and our world. So these are the three genres of books that we focus on, and we are very happy to have you with us because I think a lot of people from the television world will get a lot to learn from your insights.
Yeah, let's hope. Yes.
Right. So to
Yeah.
begin with, Anand, you had a great journey. I mean, right from childhood to now, there's so many things you're doing. You act in movies, you make movies, and now you also kind of taken the plunge as an author. So I would like you to walk us through your life journey over the past many years and what inspired you to actually kind of join this field of performing and creative arts. Over to you. 9 minutes.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm glad you timed it because I don't want to speak for more than that.
Yeah.
I don't know whether my journey would be as interesting as you make it out to be. But let me tell you, even today, after 40 plus years in show business, I feel that I am the odd man out. I don't belong here. And it is quite a miracle that I have managed to survive and exist in a field that I passionately adore and love and inhale, but I do not find myself part of because of a certain kind of system that prevails here in show business. So it would have been very unlikely. I mean, if someone had told you that there was this boy who was born in Thrissur, Kerala, the cultural capital of Kerala, I call Thrissur, and brought up in a very, very, very strict Orthodox family. And thank God for that, because my upbringing is something that I'm extremely grateful for, because it inculcated me in a lot of values, both traditional, spiritual, and social, otherwise. So I'm extremely grateful for that. But it also put a lid on, from you wanting to do probably what you wanted to do very badly. And it sort of, guided you into a certain very, what would one say, an enclosed sphere of what a Tamil Brahmin boy should do in life and should not do in life. But I guess, like they say, water finds its own level, so passion finds its own level also. So right from Thrissur to coming to then Bombay, I mean, that's another thing I'm very grateful to my parents for, because they came into Bombay, they put me into a school that, the early 11 years that I cherished so much with my teachers, the Don Bosco High School at Matunga. That that was another a great what would one say, training in discipline and commitment. And that I would say was the foundation for so many things that I managed to do fairly successfully these days. So Bosco's, and then going into a science graduation, because I always was fascinated by the sciences. I wanted to, sort of delve deep into what the scientific process in every sphere was, whether it was physics, chemistry, biology, or electronics, or anything else. And so that was where I was living. But, somewhere germinating alongside that, very subconsciously, was the arts. And it was something that fascinated me, considering that the radio and cinema, and later on, much later on, when television came in, was banned in my house by my father, because he thought that would distract me from my, from my scholastic activities, so my studies. So I did not even know the titles of films, whilst all my colleagues in to school, and they used to rattle out names and say, "Oh, we saw this film last evening. We saw that film," and I didn't know what they were talking about. We used to see a lot of films in school. There was a club called the Savio Club, and the brother who ran that club, Brother Rocha, God bless his soul, he's no more. He used to show us some classic films. He used to show us the old Dunkirk, War and Peace, Jagruti, and several films that were supposed to be classics, because even the school was taking great care that the wrong kind of cinema should not be screened in the school hall. So that was my exposure to cinema almost every Sunday at the school level, and I was fascinated by the moving image. I was fascinated by the darkness between me and the screen in the school auditorium. And these were elements that I carried with me very subconsciously when, I did my theater, where every year at the annual Parents' Day, we used to have one play that was put up by the students. And I used to make sure that I was an integral part of that play. So then debates and elocutions and singing competitions, all that followed, it went with me to the college level, where the intercollegiate competitions were much more stiffer and much more fiercer. And I guess that was where, the ingredients of a performing artist, whether it was a writer. I used to write a lot for the school and college magazines, and whether it was as an actor acting on stage at that point, or whether it was as a filmmaker much later on in life. So these were running parallel without me really giving it a thought as to whether these would lead to a career for me, a profession for me. And I was like, I would either be a research scientist or a doctor to fulfill my parents' ambitions and dreams. But somewhere something happened, and my father passed away when I was just 13, and that sort of shook my mental balance a bit, because he was the man with the iron rod, and he made sure that the iron jacket, a straight jacketed guy, that I was focusing on my studies. But somewhere I think that broke, and when I eventually did not get into the medical sciences and graduated in the sciences, I thought this would be an ideal time to just maybe take a look on the side, even as I was working at theater or at the performing arts. And when I did join a company called Technical Publications, they published a journal called The Chemical Age of India. So I thought, here is where I put my chemistry degree to use, and also my writing abilities. But from there, I went on to joining Mr. V.P. Sathe, who was a veteran. And he was Raj Kapoor's right-hand man. He and K.A. Abbas, the late K.A. Abbas, wrote a lot of Raj Kapoor's stories. So with Mr. Sathe at Bombay Publicity as a copywriter, I was suddenly exposed to the world of the big so-called mainstream cinema and the big fish, whether it was Ramesh Behel or Raj Kapoor or Subhash Ghai, Yash Chopra, and all of them. And of course, then my theater had started in full swing. We started performing at the Prithvi Theater, and we were noticed by filmmakers like Sai Paranjpe, Gulzar Saab, Aziz Mirza, Kundan Shah. And when television started in 83, when the so-called commercial television started in 83, the government decided to commission slots on television, Doordarshan, to filmmakers at that point of time, which was a very important point, which we might pick up later during the course of this discussion. filmmakers were asked to make television, and they ventured into a territory that they weren't very familiar with, yet they dared to sort of innovate and do something. So that was when Sai Paranjpe called me for Ados Pados, which was my very first television show. And after that, I would say, at least, in a very modest way, the way I have operated, there was no looking back. It was theater, television, and eventually films that came my way. It was a very, very, logical graduation, as one would put it, from acting in theater to acting in television to acting in films, and then directing in theater, directing in television, and directing film. So I did not jump the gun. I did not jump any queue, and it was a very logical progression. But what I would say at this point of time is that I learned on the job. And let me tell you, there's nothing like learning on the job. There are no schools that will teach you acting, or there are no schools that will teach you directing. I mean, they're there, but I do not want to comment. The less said, the better.
Experience is the best teacher.
Absolutely. And I exposed myself to the cinema of the world. I saw the cinema of the world, particularly the European cinema, the French New Wave, the European cinema, the German, Polish, Bergman, and Italian cinema, and then coming to Japan and Russia, and of course, India and the United States. So it was a great education. And the biggest favor that Mr. V.P. Sathe did to me was, make me watch films at the Prabhat Chitra Mandal, this film society. So I became a product of the film society. Every Sunday, we watched one print or one film that used to come in from the FTI at the New Talkies in Bandra. And that was where the schooling started, whether it was Fellini, Bergman, Godard, or, all the great Eisenstein, or Ray, Mrinal Sen, Ritwik Ghatak, Adur Gopal Krishnan, Girish Karnad, Girish Kasaravalli, and all of them, Shyam Benegal and the like. So, of course, Bimal Roy and V. Shantaram and Rishikesh Mukherjee and Bashu Chatterjee, with whom I went to have a very nice personal relationship. So, that was what it was, you see, coming from an Orthodox family, wanting to get into the medical or the research profession, but sort of, taking a detour into the arts and applying science to the arts is something that is the way I'd like to summarize my journey.
Very nice, very interesting, and what a brilliant journey, because right from kind of planning to graduate in science and research, you then move to kind of work with a agency called Bombay Publicity, and that's where you have found a great mentor in VP Sathe. Would it be right to say that VP Sathe mentored you and kind of taught you the ropes of this industry?
I would go to the point of saying, if he wasn't there, I mean, he was my second father. I mean, if he wasn't there, if he hadn't sort of, selected me as a copywriter because I just applied like we used to do in those good old days. You see an advertisement and you apply. And the bottom line there was, should be interested in films. And God knows that I was, I loved the cinema. So I guess that was what drew me to him. And then, of course, from there, he held my hand and he took me to all the various offices. I still remember Natraj Studio, where Pramod Chakravarti and Atma Ram and FC Mera, all of them had their offices in one compound. And I met all of them. I just listened to them, spoke with them, saw how they made cinema. And I guess that was where, the grounding that started was very important.
Right. So as a copywriter in good old days, do you remember some of the copies that you wrote for promoting movies or promoting any other films, etc.?
Yes, we used to do a lot of, we first, as a publicity agent, we used to do a lot of initial write-ups for a film, because when Prakash Mehra or Yash Chopra or Subhash Ghai announced a film, how do you make it interesting for a magazine like, say, Screen, or a magazine like Cine Blitz or Star and Style? All those big magazines, the trade papers like Trade Guide and Film Information. How do you make it interesting and not just send it out as a news item, making a list of the cast and credits?
Right.
So from that to becoming a film critic for the first ever tabloid in India, daily tabloid in India. It was called The Daily, and it was founded by R.K. Karanjia.
Right. Rusi Karanjia.
Karanjia, yes. And it was edited by R.K. Bajaj.
I remember it had a bulldog as its mascot.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I was the film critic. So at that point of time, it was very interesting. On one hand, I was actually publicizing the films, almost 99% of the films that were made, because Bombay Publicity had a great monopoly over all the producers and their media campaigns.
Right.
And, writing reviews without being biased, because though these were your clients, and at one point of time, it became very tricky because I'd run down a film called Mazdoor, and I didn't like the film. And apparently, B.R. Chopra called up VP Sati and said, "How could you have our man writing this?" So, but I was honest. I couldn't bring myself to praise a film just because I knew the person or he was our client. So that was a very interesting and tricky period that happened. But of course, then 10 years at Bombay Publicity from 1980 to 1990, and then I had to sort of take the plunge, take the decision, because even though I managed to do my rehearsals in the evenings and keep my theater going, thanks to Mr. Sati's, being liberal and letting me go for my shows, I couldn't do that with television or cinema, because that demanded my full-time attention. And finally, with a very heavy heart, I had to say goodbye to Mr. Sati, and then go on to finding my place wherever it beckoned me. So that was what it was, writing copies. Yes, all those interesting captions that you saw up there on the film designs, I tried to give it some kind of some kind of maturity, because I saw some terrible captions before.
I remember
some of
there were
these
some very cheesy lines.
Some PR, most of these PR public relations guys who used to write them, and then when I used to sort of modify and give it some kind of this, and they say, "No, ye kisi ko samajh mein nahi aayega. Nobody's going to understand this. Latmar caption chahiye. We want something that will sort of go with the masses." But I couldn't get myself to write those Latmar captions. So this was where I think my initial struggle with creativity happened, and the creative differences started cropping up. I never guessed that those would sort of blow up so much when I actually started making films.
Right. So from copywriting, you moved on to acting, and you said the first role was offered to you by Sai Paranjape for Ados Pados. And then you also acted in Khandan and some other television
serials. No, I wasn't in Khandan. I mean, that's why I get that Wikipedia page off your record. Wikipedia.
Okay. I done some research. So
yeah, anyway. I call it Wikipedia because it's got everything wrong as far as I'm concerned. Okay. So it wasn't Khandan, it was Ghar Jamai. Actually, the maker of Khandan, Sridhar Shivsagar, made a second series called Ghar Jamai, and that's where I played the lead.
Right. So since Wikipedia is all wrong, tell us more about your acting journey, and how did you pick up the ropes of acting, and which are some of the memorable roles in TV and films that you hold dear to your heart?
I would say it started with theater. Theater, the grounding the theater gives you when you go up there on stage and hold stage for an audience of 1,000 or more for 2 hours or more. It draws, I mean, it sort of, the focus that is required, the discipline, whether it's mental or physical, that is required. So it was a great training ground for me. I started with Shakespeare's Hamlet. Of course, I didn't play Hamlet, I played Polonius. And I think, the focus, I was talking about focus, that was in 1977. And the lines have stayed with me. There was this great monologue which Polonius comes and tells Hamlet, "The actors are here, my lord, the best actors in the world, either for tragedy, comedy, history, pastoral, pastoral, comical, historical, pastoral, tragical, historical, tragical, comical, historical, pastoral, scene undivided or poem unlimited. Seneca cannot be too heavy, nor Plautus too light. For the raw of written liberty, these are the only men." Now, to keep this in your memory cells for so many years, for almost 45 years, is something that is the kind of discipline that theater demands. You better be there on the mark, and you better focus so sharply that you remember all the lines. I mean, there was a time when when we performed a full month at the Prithvi, it was a festival of plays, and it was 13 plays that we performed, and I was there in all 13 of them. So actually performing 13 plays over a month that is where,
Right.
you either you make it or you don't make it. So
No,
that is where.
I completely understand the discipline that you require, because it's like oratory. You have to be completely in command of the stage and command of your content so that you can actually serve the audience.
That's right. So that's where I think the germs of acting sort of, I sort of honed my acting. Of course, watching all the great performances all around the world. The performances started from as early as 1930s during the silent era, and then coming down to 1980. So that complete gamut of great performances from all around the world, and you start storing in your, in your memory cells, how does one react to a certain situation, how subtly can you do it, and how normally can you do it without going over the top. Although Hindi cinema has actually at many a time told me, oh, don't do this, come on, we want it louder, we want it over the top kind of thing. So you succumb to that, and then you cringe when you watch those films today. But that's not what I had in mind. But acting for me is just one word: not acting, just reacting.
Right. So you would say you went up on stage and you went up in front of the camera and just reacted to what you were told, or you reacted to the situation and the scene and improvised on your own? What is the
Uh,
method of acting that you kind of
I'm not a method
employ?
actor. I'm not a method actor at all. I'm an instinctive actor, and that can be very dangerous because instinctive acting is like walking a tightrope. One slip and you're down. But if you cross that rope, it's magic, you know. So I don't resort to method acting. I don't resort to, with every take, if my left hand is here, if I pick up the glass and if I do this, then they do another take again. I do this like, absolute robot. No, I don't do that. Maybe then I pick up the glass and it's away somewhere, and then I put it back and then I have it. So each time, it gives you, that's what theater also helps you. Every show that you do, the first show is the most spontaneous show because you do not know what is coming. You do not know how the audience is going to react. From the second show onwards, you start getting to be clever,
Right,
manipulative, because you know the laughs are coming here, you know the ha's are coming here, you know the gasps are coming here.
right,
By the 100th show, you become repetitive, and
right,
that is what I do not want to become.
right.
A repetitive actor. So that is where the instinctive performances, come in handy, and you try and innovate, you try and change, you try and grow as much as possible as an actor. Experience takes you through. I mean, today what I perform, I probably wouldn't have done when I was, in on stage in 1980. So it's 40 years. So, but then if you're not growing as an actor, if you're not using the experience, then you're stagnant. You're like a cesspool,
Right.
and that's where you start breeding serious illnesses, and then you become stale as an actor. So
Right.
that's another important thing. Keep growing every day.
Right. So that's what I was saying. I was not saying that you are a method actor, but the method that you employ is that you're instinctive, you improvise on the go, you think on your feet, and then you add some life and bring the role to life. So which are some of the roles that you hold dear to your heart in television, in movies? Because you acted in so many movies. How many movies have you acted in so far?
I actually haven't kept count. I've
Right.
only kept count of those which mattered, like, for example, Khiladi, Bazigar, Badshah,
Okay.
Gardish.
Right.
Then I did a film called Staying Alive, which I directed, and oh, that's the poster you see behind over there
All right.
with Saurabh Shukla.
Right.
So that's where I played one of the main leads, and that was a very challenging part because you had to direct and act at the same time. But as far as television is concerned, yes. I would thank Sai Paranjpuri for creating an absolute feather-brained character in Chintamani, which people still remember. And I would also thank Mr. Sanjay Khan for casting me in the Sword of Tipu Sultan as Pandit Purnaya, because
Okay.
that I would say was the cliched lifetime role for me.
Right. Right. So that was so sort of Tipu Sultan.
That's right.
So tell us, what is Staying Alive all about, and which year did you make this movie?
Staying Alive was in the year 2010, 9-10,
Okay.
and I used to interact a lot with Mr. Sujit Sen. He was one of the most well-read and most erudite writers in the film industry.
Right.
His works include films like Arth, Saransh, Hum Hai Rahi Pyar Ke, these kind of films. But Mr. Sujit Sen, unfortunately, was a chain smoker, and he was a heart patient. He had his third heart attack and he landed up at the ICCU of a hospital. And this is the story that he told me. He said, I was lying there in the ICCU of a hospital on one bed, and on the bed next to me was this underworld guy. Now, here was Sujit Sen uh, laughing at death, because after 3 heart attacks, if death didn't come, it became a joke for him. And there was that underworld guy who was dispensing death and was petrified of dying after his first heart attack. So I thought this was, very interesting look at life and death. And the interaction between the two ends up changing the underworld guy's life, at least outlook towards life. So that prompted me to make this film, and it was a very experimental. I mean, I had made mainstream films like Dil Vil Pyar Vyar, which incidentally was the first retro musical that Indian cinema had, because we used R.D. Burman's published works. I made Dil Mange More with Shahid Kapoor and Aisha Takia. Soha Ali Khan was introduced in the film. Then I made a thriller called Aksar with Imran Hashmi, Dino Moria. But somewhere that was not the kind of cinema I had schooled myself on. I knew that I had to get into the mainstream popular genres before I could do what I wanted to do. And when I did end up doing Staying Alive, and it was a 90-minute film, it is a 90-minute film, and purely experimental. It was made at a cost of 30 lakhs. And when Shemaru picked up the film for distribution, and my brother Ravi Mahadevan, he saw the film, and he looked at it and he just looked at me and said, "You made this film?" I said, "Yeah, why?" He said, "If you can make this, then why the hell are you making that?" And I think that changed everything. From that day onwards, I think I was making cinema, which was going towards global cinema, going towards an international language of filmmaking. And that's what changed my life. I think Staying Alive was a changing point in my life, yes.
Right. So from acting to directing mainstream commercial cinema to now directing meaningful, mindful cinema, which has a global audience. How did that journey happen?
Well, see, I had to, I was an actor, and once an actor, always an actor. I still continue to act. So that is something that I would do with a lot of passion. But when you, get subjects that you feel that you should direct, you should make and put up there on screen, that's when the director in me gets going. And when I did Staying Alive, and then I went on to do a film called Red Alert: The War Within. It was another true story of an Andhra farmer who got caught in the crossfire between the cops and Naxalites. And Mr. Sunil Shetty played that part. And we had an array of great names in that. We had Ashish Vidyarthi and Aisha Dharkar and Samira Reddy, Sunil Sinha, a lot of great names, great performers in that, along with Mr. Sunil Shetty and Gulshan Grover, Nasiruddin Shah, Vinod Khanna. So that was a film that was a big film in many ways, because there was a lot of action in it, and even the New York Times film critics singled out the action, the choreographed action in Red Alert. But then it was just another step towards me taking one more emboldened move towards global cinema. And when I read the story of Sindhutai Sabkal, the mother who picked up abandoned infants from the street and gave them shelter, I said, this is the film I have to make. And I knew I had to make it in Marathi, because Sindhutai came from the very interiors of Maharashtra, and if I made it in Hindi, that would be a little dishonest to the film. And if I was claiming to make a realistic film, I did not want to get into the language, hassle. So that was my first film in Marathi. And Sindhutai Sabkal did for me. Me Sindhutai Sabkal was the title. I am Sindhutai Sabkal. And that film did for me what 7 Hindi films could not do.
Right.
It fetched me 4 national awards. It fetched me a lot of recognition around the world, from London to Palm Spring to Cleveland to a lot of international film festivals. And it reinstated the faith in me. That was the most important thing, because somewhere along the way, you begin to lose faith. Are you doing the right thing? You begin to doubt yourself. Is this what I want to do? Am I really getting there? Am I getting what I want? And all these citations for me, Sindhutai Sabkal, put that faith back in me, and I realized that I wasn't going too wrong. Let me try and pick up another subject that would be as challenging, as unsung, because a lot of people around me suddenly started making biopics, but they were all about, known faces, heroes, whether they were sports heroes or political heroes or otherwise. But I went for a hero who was not known at all, and
Right.
his name was Gaur Hari Das.
Right.
He fought the best years of his life as a freedom fighter, and then he went on to using the best years of his life later, 35 years, to fight for a freedom fighter certificate. So was this the country that I fought for? Was this the country that I gained independence for? The country that doubts me now, the country that says I lose my credibility as a freedom fighter. So that was a political and a personal question that the film asked, and it was a personal war that I wanted to bring onto screen. And when Gaur Hari Dastan got as much acclaim as Me Sindhutai Sabkal, I knew that, this is where I think my forte lies, trying to get real stories onto screen, but real challenging stories which are difficult to convert into cinema. Because every time I picked up these stories, my producer would have a doubt, oh, would this end up as a documentary? No, and to dramatize someone's life without losing out on the essence, and being honest, and not
Right.
giving it some kind of a Hindi film blown up image, was the tough part. And I think after Gaurari Dastan, then I made Dr. Rakmabai, which was on India's first practicing lady doctor. Then I went on to making films like Rough Book, which was a very defining film on India's education system. And then there were two films last year called My Ghat and Bittersweet, both of which dealt with some very, very, inflammable issues in society. And now I've just finished my 17th, or rather 18th feature film, which I've just shot, and the post production's on. So the important factor here is that every time I do a, sort of a reality check on myself to see whether I've grown from my previous film.
Very nice.
I have nothing.
Continuous improvement.
That's
Kaizen.
right. There's nothing to show to the world or prove to the world. It's to prove to me that I've not stagnated as a director or as an actor. I need to keep growing. So
No, and
that's
I completely relate with it because I also tell true stories of real unsung heroes, everyday heroes as we call them. And I know how difficult it is to stay true to the subject without losing the creativity and the storytelling. But you
right.
stay true because you don't want to just kind of overblow it and use what is called a cinematic or creative license. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I read somewhere that you're working on a new film which is called The First Second Chance. What is that movie all about?
That's a short film which I am only acting in,
Right.
and it is made by a lady called Lakshmi Iyer,
Okay.
and it's her directorial debut. I mean,
Right.
she's done short films before, but this is a major directorial debut.
Right.
And Renuka Shane, who is of course very well known as a Hindi film actor, Marathi director too. She is the female lead, and we just finished shooting it yesterday. We finished the film. So I keep my roots with acting, absolutely intact. That is
Very
something
nice.
I do not want to
And
lose.
you must do that because I mean you excelled in that also. You know, it's very interesting. I think Sindhutai Sabkal was released in around 2010,
Yeah.
right? And in 2010 is when I first announced our first book called the Karma Kari book. And I can
Uh,
so relate with you because you know when I announced this in a press conference, because we do something called the Karmavir Awards, where we
uh-huh.
celebrate unsung heroes. We've been doing it for the past 18 years. At a
Mm-hmm.
time when the Padma Shris, etc., were being given to people who had the lobbying power to lobby for those awards. So
Right.
we said we need to create something which is for the unsung hero. And I was inspired by Dashrath Manji, whose story I had
Uh,
first told when I started something called The Joy of Giving in
right.
2003, because it was a chance meeting with him in a place called Kerala. And I remember a journalist told me at the press conference, she said, who will read your stories? What are you talking about? Why don't you write about some celebrities, movie stars, sports stars? And I said to her, you know, I said, they don't inspire me because not too many of them are doing anything to make a difference in our world. And I said the first story does have some people who are from the film world, but it's because they're doing something to make a difference in our world. And I said the way I see myself is I'm a historian for these unsung heroes because there's no media, whether magazines or newspapers, who are celebrating them today. And that was my inspiration. And today, of course, after 18 years of doing this, we have several newspapers, several magazines who have started columns to celebrate real unsung heroes. Now we have websites and so on. And at that time, it started a portal also called Dishoom, which was purely about, telling stories of real heroes who are making an impact. And that's why we use the mnemonic of Dishoom, which is a
Right,
sound mnemonic for a hard hitting punch.
right.
So that was my inspiration to write books of real heroes and bring them to the fore by making people aware that there are people who are changing our world. So whether uh, a person from a village called Laporia, whose name is Lakshman Singh, who has transformed over 500 villages from wastelands into wetlands and created livelihood from agriculture for over 1 million people, which many entrepreneurs will find it difficult to match, or Dashrath Manji, who moved an entire mountain. They were my inspiration. So, what is your inspiration? What inspired you to get into writing books from all that you have on your plate already? And what is the central theme of your book, Once Upon a Prime Time?
Over the years around 2000, and this came out, yes, last year, 2020. So around 2017 was when, I realized that I have been around for a long time, run the entire gamut of commercial Indian television right from its inception. I have seen the founding fathers of Indian television right up to, the creative heads of today. And I've interacted with them. I have worked with them. I worked with all my colleagues and my peers and my contemporaries. And I realized that there was a wealth of stories to be, sort of told, a wealth of information to be given. And I had not written a diary or anything. I had not kept any memoirs or, something like that. And I realized that before this hard disk, deletes everything from memory or crashes, I should put this down because I also realized uncannily that there was no book on this part of Indian television, commercial Indian television, sponsored television, as they call it. So I decided to put pen to paper and I started writing. And I realized that, the thoughts were flying faster than the pen because there was so much to be said. And how does one say it? I didn't want to say it in a very boring chronological fashion. I wanted to give it some kind, and the screenplay writer in me comes to the fore at this point, and even a book ends up looking like a screenplay. So
Right.
it goes back and forth, but it connects the dots, and it makes it very interesting for the reader to go more of subject wise rather than year wise, because this is not an anthology of the television serials that were made in India. This is a story of the stories behind those stories, and of the people who were there. And I think more than anything, this is a tribute to those founding fathers, like I said, of Indian television, who seem to be totally forgotten by the new generation today. I mean, when you work with a Sai Paranjpe, Bashu Chatterjee, Rishikesh Mukherjee, Yash Chopra, Ramesh Sippy, MS Satyu, Kundan Shah, Aziz Mirza, or Saeed Mirza, all of them coming together to create some magic on television that hasn't been forgotten till today. Those days we probably thought we were novices trying to do something, trying to find our footing in a new media. But today, the kind of television that's being dished out, it actually makes these works look like classics. So I would say that I made the right decision at the right time to put this down, and it's right here in front of you. That's the cover. And I made, my brother Ravi and me, we got together and we sort of brainstormed as to what kind of cover should go. And we decided to do a very nostalgic cover because these are the beta
Right.
tapes,
Absolutely. Yeah.
that were used in those days. I had a lot of them because those were some of the productions that I did myself. So I had
You
those.
you use them as props for the photo op.
Yeah. So, so once upon a prime time, it really worked. The theme of the story, I mean, the title of the book worked with the picture. So that's how it is. And then, of course, Embassy Books and Sohin Lakhani and Aruna ji, they all came in. Aruna Joshi came in, and they decided to pick up the book and publish it. And well, that was it. Last year, during the pandemic, right in the heart of the pandemic, my publisher said, bookstores are not going to open and people are staying at home and they want to read books. In fact, he had a lot of demand for all the books that he had already published. Please send us books we want to read. So we decided to do the soft launch. We did the Kindle version first. Normally, it's the other way around. You release the paperback first and then
Yeah,
the soft copy. But we released the Kindle version, which received a lot of acclaim and support and subscriptions. And so we released the paperback. And
would you like to show the audience the book at this point?
oh yes, it's right here.
Right.
This is the book, Once Upon a Prime Time. And I was very fortunate that the releasing the Kindle version worked, because then we had Hindustan Times, Anand Mahindru, Ashish Vidyarthi, India Today, and we also had R.K. Bajaj, Bharat Dabolkar, Vivek Vaswani, Lilith Dubey, Nandita Ompuri, Benjamin Gilani, and Amit Khanna actually giving us very rave reviews,
right,
for the book, and Hemaji writing the preface for the book, the foreword for the book. Right. So that's by the time we got the hard copy out, we had a lot of reviews, which normally the first edition of a book doesn't have, unless you give it out, get the reviews, and then this thing. I also decided that I will handwrite a certain part of this book. And what I did was, if you could just sort of get that screen back,
right.
This is the acknowledgements page, which is handwritten, because
right, very nice.
I wanted it to be personal. We are so impersonal these days with the keyboard that,
right,
and
very
with
nice.
WhatsApp messages. I decided to handwrite the acknowledgements page. And this is something that
I'm going to emulate that idea in my next book. Which is interesting. It's a book called Weekends with Zoe, which is a girl who's dying at the age of 16, appoints me as a life coach to give her life lessons. So it's a very interesting concept, and it's based on a true engagement. But right. I like that idea of handwriting your acknowledgements and introduction.
Yeah, and then of course I had a lot of photographs which are there in black and white, and these are all very nostalgic, very rare photographs that happened, whether Sharmila Tagore or Hema Malini, or that's Mr. VP Sathe here,
Right.
He's the man. He was the man responsible. And of
man
course,
behind the man.
Yeah, Mahmood Saab was there, and all these people, that's Satyu and Mohan Gokhale. I mean, a very rare picture of Mohan Gokhale, Tom Alter, they're all here, Sharmila ji and Kamaljeet and Dalit Tahil in Bunyad, and of course, Ravi Baswani, all of them. I mean, this is something, that trip down memory lane with this book was not just, writing a book, but also, living those times all over again, and also realizing the harsh truth that those times won't come back, because, you won't get these filmmakers to make television anymore.
Right. And, I think it's time now for you to walk down memory lane again by sharing some of those behind the scenes anecdotes that you've written in the book. So if you could read out 2 or 3 paragraphs one by one, which are most dear to your heart, because it talks about being behind the scenes with Amitabh Bachchan, Sai Paranjape, Ravi Vaswani, etc. That's what I read in the introduction. So over to you.
Right. So, all right. I'll try and just read a few passages. I don't want to make them the regular passages, but yeah. So when we were doing Ghar Jamai, Ghar Jamai was a comedy of manners between a Punjabi household and the South Indian household. The Punjabi father-in-law
Right.
trying to, lord over the South Indian son-in-law.
Right.
It was
I
like
remember that series. Yeah.
yeah, it was like a Tom and Jerry thing. It was like Hagar the Horrible versus Tom and Jerry.
Right.
So I'll read this a small little passage. It's interesting because this is the reaction to Gharjamai.
Okay.
I guess it took a while for Gharjamai to sink in as a comedy of manners. For those fed on the staple sitcom diet, this clash of North and South rituals could well have been a culture shock. But gradually, Mr. Mehra and Subbu came to stay. Mohina Singh, who was Sridhar Shisagar's assistant, admitted that as a genre, comedy was certainly a tougher option. She said, "It doesn't come easily to me. It obviously didn't come easily to Sridhar too," as he himself confessed. Probably that's why he had Mohina direct Garjamai. But then again, it wasn't a comedy like Yeju Hai Zindagi, which was stomach clutching funny. This, on the other hand, was about relationships, adjustments, habits, and the cultural diversity of opposites under the same roof. It was a more poignantly humorous serial. That's why Mohina says, "I think I enjoyed directing it." On the eve of the premiere telecast, an upbeat Sri Sagar, confident of Garjamai's success, was briefing us on how to handle the media and be politically correct. He may as well have lectured us on how to deal with unemployment. For Doordarshan officials, fueled by the stray feedback that the series ridiculed communities, played safe with the mandatory 13 episodes and did not keep their word of the promised extension. It was my first tryst with the fickle ways of bureaucracy, and this was only the tip of the iceberg. I was to discover that we were a nation of oh so easily hurt people.
And that's what I always say in my writings, in my oratory, that we are not only the world's largest democracy, we are also the world's largest hypocrisy, because there are a lot of things that we don't like to accept, and we won't
Right,
accept. Right.
right.
So I completely understand. And I mean, one of the reasons I use a lot of humor in my oratory is because when I'm talking against casteism or religion, humor takes the edge away, because otherwise
Right,
the
right.
bitter truth becomes even more
Absolutely,
difficult
absolutely. Yeah,
for
yeah,
people to bear.
yeah.
And yet, even through the genre of comedy, when people take offense, it's really something to think about
True,
how immature we are as a nation and as a culture.
true. But when you jump, say that was 1985, when you jump to 1995, which is about
Right.
a decade later,
Right.
when satellite television had come to stay, I thought of reviving Gharjamai
Right.
into a season two. And
Right.
this time we could work it out with a satellite channel and better telecast qualities and, of course, less interference.
Right.
So that's when I decided that I would take on the mantle of the director. We went to Sridhar Shisagar. We requested him to give us the rights of the concept of Garjamai. We, of course, even did a few of the episodes that were done earlier. And we did about 75 episodes of Garjamai with Satish Shah still playing, the garrulous father-in-law. But then R. Madhavan and Mandira Bedi took over as the couple. And we also had a lot of guest artists in it, from Sadhna Singh, who played the mother, to Asrani Saab, to Ranjit, and so many of them who were part of the second season of Garjamai. So here was, the instance, a very rare instance of a person who acted in the first season and directed the second season. So that I thought was something very novel.
Very nice. I think that's a great leap from an actor to a director, and the same theme and the same
Yeah,
concept being kind of rehashed.
right, right.
So how was it different from the one that you had acted in?
Well, those that there was only there were 13 episodes, and we were under severe constraints as not to hurt anything communal or religious or whatever sentiments they were.
Right.
But this time we got on some very interesting writers. Jayan Kriplani had penned those initial episodes,
Right.
and this time we got on some very intelligent writers like Ranjan Bose and Bhushan Barmali, who used to write for Gulzar Saab, and Ranjan Bose used to write for Bashu Chatterjee. So we got these writers on board, and we made sure that the humor was right on top of the shelf, and this wasn't base humor. This wasn't the kind of fun or comedy that the Indian audiences generally thought of as fun and comedy. And the result was that even in as far as the United States, when people watched this on ZTV, they said this is the finest and the most polished kind of humor that ever came out of Indian television.
Very nice, excellent. So that's you took us behind the scenes of a television series that you worked with, right? Which is Karchamai. Coming to what you called as consumer-driven shows, because television has come a long way now, right? You have so many reality shows and everything. So do you want to take us behind the scenes of a consumer-driven show and what you've written about that in your book?
See, consumerism came in a very heavy way in the new millennium when 2000 started.
Right.
And suddenly you saw the format of television changing drastically. What used to be a very popular weekly was no longer patronized. There was a huge, sea change, as one would call it, when suddenly the weeklies were taken over by the dailies, and the reality shows came in. And when you try and stretch what is actually one episode into 7 episodes in a week, I mean, you can't blame the writers for it, because where would they get the material to actually write?
Right.
And when you want to run a particular show for 200 and 500 episodes, and there are 4 or 5 of them every week, there is no way that you can hold audience attention. So that started, I would say, the downfall, the dailies, and then the cliched relationships of the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law, the Saas Bahu sagas, as they call it,
Right.
which came into every, possible concept, whether it was a historical or whether it was a sci-fi or whether it was a medical, medical related show. The Saas Bahus eventually sort of trespassed into it, and then the whole concept changed. So
Right.
it was ridiculous. It was regressive, and it was something that was not the television that we founded, and it was
also took us years behind because of all the kind of damn dogmas, stupid superstitions, and blind beliefs, as I call them, which are peddled through many of the shows.
Yeah, what happened was something very funny and something very, I would say again, very outlandish, because what they actually did, these daily soaps, they went back to the South Indian melodramas of the 60s. So you had Sasbi Kabhi Bahu Thi, you had Samaj Ko Badal Dalo, you had Jeene Ki Raah, you had a lot of those, Sasural films and Ghungat films. They were all taken and rehashed.
Absolutely.
Each film had 20 situations, so they rehashed all that. Suddenly everyone started doing that. All the production companies and the channels started doing that. So every show started looking the same. And at one point of time, if you actually removed the logo on the top, the channel logo on the top from each of them, and if you switch channels, they all looked the same. Each show looked the same, because if there was one marriage happening in one, there was the Satfera happening in the other, and the Vidai happening in the third. It looked amazingly similar, because they all thought the same. They said great minds think alike, but these are grated minds which were thinking alike.
Never watched any of them, but I've always spoken against them, because I think as a country, we are so regressive. And this has only made us more regressive because of, like I said, I mean, so many superstitions are actually kind of peddled through the shows.
But I'm sorry to interrupt. When I went and asked these so-called channel heads, or these creative heads, or these executive producers who are now making television instead of filmmakers, they said this is what the sponsors demand, because the women folk, for want of anything else, had got drugged onto these shows. They were addicted to these shows, and they were watching it whether they were in the afternoon, the evening, or late night. And then the consumerism comes into the fore, the consumer products come into the fore, whether it's a soap or whether it is an automobile or whether it's anything else. They say, what are your TRP? This is the kind of, viewership we are looking at. This is the age viewership. We want to attract the people from 20 to 30. We want the youth to come in at this point. We want the ladies to come in at this point.
Right.
So the channel heads had no option but to actually fall for this, because otherwise it became a question of survival.
It's a
So
catch 22, yeah.
yeah, so eventually consumerism, it has destroyed our lives and values. It also destroyed creativity on television.
And it's also destroying society, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's
And,
what I
and,
said.
and, you know, I ran a media and entertainment company, founded it, started it, and ran it, called Lucky Star Entertainment. And one of the things we wanted to do always was fund the right, mindful, meaningful cinema. In 2001, I made India's first movie on HIV/AIDS, with a true story, which was, you know, based in Freedom Foundation at Bangalore. And we made a statement about how sex workers are not bad women. And it was like the first Philadelphia of India. And at that time, public
Right.
advocacy cinema, as I called it, was not yet accepted. Tare Zameen per changed that. And of course, what you're doing also is public advocacy cinema. And I think catch 22 situation, what I've seen is some of the people who were used to speak back then, and I'll take names like Anurag Kashyap, etc., would say that we'll never have item numbers in our movies, because how do you make a serious movie and put in an item number over there, right? I remember trying to kind of reason with the director, with the producers, that you can't have an item. We're tackling a very serious subject over here, right? But nowadays you see that the same people who spoke against it are adding item numbers in the name of commercialism, right? So how does that
It's
work? What
like
are your
this. It's
thoughts
like
on
this. You
this?
know, when a lot of honest people in society, they decide that enough is enough. Let us also stand for elections. Let us fight the elections, and let us, come forth as candidates, and we all vote for them. And these are the honest people that we have voted to the power. And honesty suddenly finds corruption seeping in,
Right.
and you find temptation seeping in, and these honest people actually end up succumbing to the system and getting corrupt themselves. That is what has happened with a lot of our
Absolutely.
filmmakers.
Absolutely.
They
And
start off,
I've named some.
yeah,
Wouldn't
I don't
mind
want to
naming more, but
name them. It's
yeah.
obvious. Most of these filmmakers who started off with noble intentions of making different cinema, they suddenly, over a period of years, we suddenly find that they are inspired cinema. They are Scorsese inspired cinema. They are Tarantino inspired cinema. They are Korean director inspired cinema. This
Absolutely.
is not Indian cinema. This is not
And
originality at all.
mindlessly
Yeah.
copied. I wouldn't even call it inspired. It's like
Yeah.
frame to frame copies,
That
right?
that's right. So every film, and it's shocking when you suddenly find, oh, this film was inspired by that one, and even this film, which you thought was an original and probably the director's best work, was actually a Russian film. So
Right.
when when you find this, you get disillusioned, and then you get disgusted, and you make sure that you tell yourself, no, I'm not going to do this, whatever happens. I'm not going to
Absolutely.
succumb to the system. Even if I don't survive, it's fine. But I make the cinema that I want to make, the conviction that I have. I'll continue making it as long as some great and noble souls come in and fund me. I make sure that I make, very cost-effective films, which you just can't lose money on, because they are cost-effective, and at the same time, the concepts are mind-blowing. So that is
Absolutely.
where I am headed for.
Absolutely. I mean, that takes me back to my days in Lucky Star 2001. Sorry, year 2000, 1999, 2000. I was sitting with Priyadarshan, and he had the script writer who was trying to sell us a script called Neeraj something. I forget his name. Used to
Neeraj
also
Vora, Neeraj
Neeraj
Vora.
Vora. And he narrated the script to me, and I said, "That's an English movie." And you're asking me to pay a chap from Kerala for the script which has got being adapted from there. But that's an English movie. I forget the name. And he said, "No, no way, it's possible. That means someone has stolen our script." And I said, "Are you serious?" Right? So I said, "Come on, let's cut this out. Let's get to brass tacks." I said, "We are not doing this, right? Where we have to pay so many rights to another guy from Kerala and then another guy when it's an English script that you're completely kind of lifted." Anyway, that's what it is. So going from television to where it was, with TV series, to what happened with consumer-driven shows, as we call them, and now we go to OTT platforms, and OTT platforms are now being censored or being attacked by public because of their blind beliefs and damn dogmas. So you had shows like Tandav, which even had cases filed against them. And in a country where you see extreme polarization, what do you see is the future of making honest television shows and OTT shows. What are your insights on that? And that's my last question to you.
I'm not sure about television because television is already in the rut. It is in a quagmire, and it's going to be very difficult to take it out because it has gone so the rot is so deep that it's difficult to sort of extricate it. But as far as the digital platforms are concerned, I don't want to call it OTT because they take that word so literally and they go over the top with every show. So I hate the word OTT. I hate the word Bollywood.
Right.
So let me say digital channels and web series. I think there is a lot of scope for us to, do a lot of good web series. And if you haven't realized as yet, the web series are nothing but the 13 episode and the 26 episode series that we used to do at the beginning of television Doordarshan. It was a 13 episode season, it was another 13 episode season, and another 13 episode season. So the format of the web series is nothing but what Doordarshan started off with. But then again, it's except for you can actually count 3 or 4 web series over the past few years,
which have really made an impact.
which have made an impact. The others are all
Run of the mill,
again falling and succumbing to the formula. So we need to think very strongly on that.
Right. Great. So pleasure, having this conversation with you, Anand. And if there are any closing insights before we close that you want to share with your audience, and my request to all the people in the audience, please do go and buy Anand's book on Amazon. It's available there, and you'll get to go behind the scenes of many other primetime shows. So Anand, any closing insights?
Well, all that I can say right now is that I want to, grow further as a filmmaker, grow further as an actor. And I think the best time of my life is yet to come. I need to tackle more challenging and more difficult subjects. I need to get out of my comfort zone, if ever there was one, and try and put Indian cinema on the global map and not make them scoff at our cinema like they do currently. So even as much as we sort of shout from the rooftop saying that, oh, Indian cinema has gone international, it's not. If you watch a 1940 film, if you watch a 1922 film, a silent film, you will still realize how many light years we are behind. So please, my request to all those people at the helm and the powers that be is, let us think out of the box. Please let us think and try and help us to translate our thoughts into cinema, which should be truly international and truly global. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
And that's a great insight for all filmmakers, aspiring and the ones who have made their mark. And I think with your penchant for continuous improvement, it reminds me of a quote by Thomas Kuhn, who said, all significant breakthroughs are break with old ways of thinking. Because if you don't break with old ways of thinking, you'll never be able to go for something better. And I think that's what you spoke about. And that's one insight which I want to share with the audience, whether they're budding filmmakers or people who've made their mark. Don't settle for ordinary, go for extraordinary. And that can only happen with continuous improvement. Because I always say this, perfection is the biggest lie of the world. Kaizen, continuous improvement, is the truth and reality of the world. So thank you so much, Anand.
Thank you very much.
Having you with us on the REXperience Cool Convos with Inspiring Authors. A lot of insights, and thank you. Have a great evening.
You too.
Namaste.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.